One of my subscribers had tagged me in this story right here, and I never knew who this guy was until today, mainly because he's a politician that's not representative of my state. But this man's name is J.B. Pritzker, and he is the current governor for the state of Illinois. And he just did something that I think is going to take effect on a bigger, wider scale. He just basically signed a bill where he has made it mandatory that public schools in the state of Illinois, the entire state, has to incorporate LGBT history into its curriculum. Now, if y'all remember, I did a video back in June where overseas in London, two black kids, a boy and a girl, both got suspended when they said they wanted to be excused from learning, doing this LGBT history lesson or something like that for their Pride Month. And then the teachers and the staff or the faculty who was involved blew it up and called those kids homophobic. And those two kids ended up getting suspended from school because of that. And to this day, I have not heard one person in that community do a video talking about that, which lets me know they were compliant with it, because I know I probably have some people who live that lifestyle who might watch my videos, especially when I talk about that. But I did not see or hear anyone talk about that video. As far as I'm concerned, I'm maybe one of a small handful that actually did talk about that. But I bet you know what? That lets me know that they probably agreed with their decision. Now, the reason why I mention that is because what's going to end up happening is say that a kid here or kids here said they want to be excused from doing that too. They'll do the same thing to them. This could be a new form of school to prison pipeline, especially when it involves black students. Let me go ahead and just read this article. The governor of Illinois recently signed a bill that will mandate public schools in the state to teach LGBT history beginning next year. The new legislation will require schools to incorporate a study of the roles and contributions of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people as a part of the American history curriculum. I'm trying to figure out what did they contribute besides wanting to get married to each other, wanting to adopt kids, having a gang of pride parades. Though, of course, they're going to talk about Stonewall because, like that's their biggest thing ever in history. And really nothing has compared to it since then. And that was back in the 60s. Are they going to talk about how they tried to hijack the civil rights movement from black people? And isn't it funny that I bet you any amount of money they will incorporate all of their history? And it's not that long, to be quite honest. I mean, if you want to talk about modern day, like within the last 50 or so odd years, they will incorporate all of that. But when it comes to incorporating black history, even though we're regulated to 28 days, 29 on a leap year, which will be next year, they'll pick and choose who to and who to not incorporate into black history, even though that is American history. Amazing how all of that works itself out, or should I say does not work itself out. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, a Democrat, or should I say Democrat, signed House Bill 246 into law on Friday, which will require schools to incorporate LGBT history in American history courses. The law mandates that all publicly funded schools in Illinois include the roles and contributions of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people in the history of this country and this state in official textbooks. Each public school district and state recognized non-public school shall, subject to appropriations for that purpose, receive a per pupil grant for purchase of secular and non-discriminatory textbooks, reads the text of the legislation. Now look at that. It says each public school district and state recognized non-public school shall, subject to appropriations for that purpose, receive a per pupil grant for the purchase of secular. Again, I say secular. Those of you who are not familiar with that is literally almost damn near a biblical term for sexual or explicit and non-discriminatory textbooks. So you see what they really trying to do. It says the bill continues. In public schools only, the teaching of history shall include a study of the roles and contributions of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people in the history of this country and this state. The teaching of history shall also include a study of the role of labor unions in their interaction with government in achieving the goals of a mixed free enterprise system. No pupil shall be graduated from the 8th grade of any public schools unless he or she has received such instruction in the history of the United States and gives knowledge of having a comprehensive knowledge thereof. They are literally forcing this onto children. And notice it said 8th grade. So 8th grade, you got to think the age for an 8th grader is like maybe 13 going on 14. And this is in the public school system where the majority of the children are. And they're making this a requirement. They're saying that if there's a class for this and the kids do not take it, they will get held back until they take and pass the class. Y'all cannot tell me that there is no forced agenda going on here. And I'm telling you, this is the beginning of it right here. Once that thing, because like I say, it always happens in a vacuum. Once it starts in one place, it's a domino effect, and then it'll stop popping up everywhere else. Notice it said public schools. So that means if you go to like a charter school or a private school, you won't be affected by it. Watch the private school stock go up, but then they're going to try to do something else slick, raise the price for the private school. But then, of course, the other option is homeschooling. But then watch they drop stipulations on that as well. Do not underestimate the people who hold the power. According to the legislation, the state's Board of Education is now mandated to annually publish a list of textbooks authorized to be purchased and is authorized to provide annual funding to public school districts and state-recognized non-public schools serving students in grades kindergarten through 12 for the purchase of the textbooks. One of the best ways to overcome intolerance is through education and exposure to different people and viewpoints, said State Senator Heather Steens, another Democrat, in a previous statement. An inclusive curriculum will not only teach an accurate version of history, but also promote acceptance of the LGBTQ community. It is my hope that teaching students about the valuable contributions of LGBTQ individuals have made throughout history will create a safer environment with fewer incidents of harassment at its themes. LGBTQ children and teenagers will also be able to gain a new role model who shares life experiences with them. The new legislation will take effect next year on July 1st. Like I said, they will put all of their history into these books, but they'll pick and choose what Black history, or what I should say, ADOS history, they would like to talk about. You would never find a Malcolm X in a textbook. You won't find Dr. Khalid Muhammad in a textbook. You won't find Shahrazad Ali in a textbook. You won't find anything about the Black Panther Party in a textbook. You will not find anything about MOVE in a textbook. None of that, and a whole lot more. Not to take away from who they usually talk about, but what they do is they'll put what they deem the safe Negro in a textbook. And even then, when they do that, they'll pick and choose. Like if they talk about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., they'll only talk about him up to I Have a Dream. They won't talk about I've integrated my people into a burning house building. They won't talk about him wanting to get that check. They'll bypass all of that and go straight to the part where he died. And they'll even embellish that. But hey, they're going to make sure you learn all about the LGBT community. Wow. It's amazing. Not in a good way, but amazing nonetheless. And people try to say that there's nothing going on here, that there's no agenda clear at work. Of course, we know people in that community are going to say that it's not an agenda. Of course, they're going to say that. That's their community. But even though, if you ask some of them will probably won't even agree with this either. This is going to open up a whole can of worms. And I bet you any amount of money that the reason why they're doing this is because of money. I'll give it to them. The LGBT community is very small, but they hold a lot of finances. And it's mainly because of the white ones that are there. Because let me tell you right now, the LGBT community consisted of no one who was white. They probably wouldn't have a huge foothold at all. It's the palm colored ones that are literally holding that table up. If you remove them, that table would collapse. But I see what they're doing here. But like I said, the thing that got me was when they said that this is a requirement. It's not an elective. So it's not like they can choose not to participate. They're making this a requirement, and they have to pass the class in order to go from the 8th grade to the 9th. And notice at what age they're getting them. They're getting them young when their minds are still developing. It's funny because I think they used to have sex ed in school. Notice they don't even have that anymore. Wouldn't that be funny if they brought sex ed back? Then that means they would have to incorporate all sexual intercourses, including theirs. And how much you want to bet they'll focus on theirs more? This is all by design. And this is the guy right here that is making sure that it happens. Like I said, do not be surprised if sometime in the future you get a letter coming home from your child's school saying something to the effect of this. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. I will talk to you in the next one.